The alarm shrieked at 5:47 a.m., pulling Olivia Marchetti from a sleep that had barely qualified as rest. She slapped at her phone until the noise stopped, then lay there in the gray dawn light filtering through her studio apartment's single window. The ceiling had a water stain shaped like a continent she couldn't name. She'd been staring at it for 3 years. Her body moved on autopilot. Shower in the cramped bathroom where the tiles were cracked like spiderwebs. Coffee from the machine that sputtered and hissed like it was angry about being awake too. Toast because anything more elaborate required energy she didn't have. The mirror showed her what she already knew. 26 years old and looking older. Hazel eyes with shadows underneath that no amount of concealer could fully hide. Chestnut hair that needed a trim she couldn't afford. The drive to Rainbow Hearts Daycare took 23 minutes through morning traffic. Olivia's car made a concerning rattling sound that had started 2 weeks ago and that she was determinedly ignoring until her next paycheck. The daycare sat in a neighborhood that real estate agents called emerging and everyone else called struggling. Bright murals on the walls tried to distract from the bars on the windows. She arrived at 6:47 a.m. 13 minutes early like always. The building smelled like industrial cleaner and the faint sweetness of yesterday's snack time. Maria, the director, was already in her office, hunched over spreadsheets with the expression of someone trying to make impossible numbers work. "Morning," Olivia called, not expecting much response. Maria looked up, managed a tired smile. "Coffee's fresh. You're a saint for taking the early shift again." Saint felt like the wrong word. Saints probably didn't lie awake at night calculating whether they could afford both groceries and electricity. Saints probably didn't avoid their family for 8 years out of stubborn pride. The children started arriving at 7:15 a.m. This was the part of her day that made sense. Little Jasmine with her crooked pigtails, crying because her mom had to leave for her shift at the hospital. Marcus, who always brought a different superhero toy and needed to show it to everyone. Tiny Elena, only 3 years old, who still wasn't talking much, but who would hold Olivia's hand during story time like it was a lifeline. "Miss Olivia, look what I made." 6-year-old David thrust a drawing at her around 9:30 a.m. The page showed 5 stick figures of varying heights, all holding hands, a house behind them with a triangle roof and square windows. A yellow circle sun in the corner. "Tell me about it," Olivia said, crouching down to his level. "That's my family." His finger traced each figure. "Mommy, Daddy, me, my sister, and my baby brother. We're all together." Something twisted in Olivia's chest. She smiled anyway. "It's beautiful, David. Should we hang it up?" While David ran to get tape, Olivia stayed crouched there, staring at the drawing. All together. Such a simple concept. Once upon a time, she'd had that. A mother who sang while cooking. A father who could fix anything. A brother who'd terrified her bullies and then bought her ice cream. Then came the funeral. Rain pounding on black umbrellas. Vincent in a suit that made him look like a stranger. Jaw clenched, eyes empty. She'd been 18, starting college. He'd been 26, about to inherit an empire built on violence and fear. "Take the money," he'd said, trying to hand her an envelope thick with cash. "You don't need to work. I'll take care of everything." "I don't want that money. I don't want any part of this." His face had gone cold. "This is our family's legacy. It's blood money. It got our parents killed." They hadn't spoken since. 8 years of silence broken only by the occasional envelope of cash left at her door, which she'd throw away without opening. Stubborn pride, her mother would have called it. Olivia called it survival. The morning passed in the controlled chaos of 14 children under the age of 7. Snack time, circle time, art projects that resulted in more taint on clothes than paper. During lunch, while the kids ate their sandwiches and apple slices, Maria called Olivia into the office. "We need to talk about the funding situation." Olivia's stomach dropped. "How bad?" "We're short $3,000 this month. The grant we were counting on fell through." Maria rubbed her temples. "I don't know how much longer we can keep the doors open. There has to be something we can do. Apply for other grants, fundraising." "We've tried everything." Maria's voice cracked. "These kids need us, and I don't know how to save this place." Olivia left the office feeling like the floor had turned liquid. This job wasn't just her income. It was her purpose, her proof that she'd chosen right by walking away from her brother's world. If the daycare closed, what did that leave her? Her evening shift at Joe's Diner started at 5 p.m. She had exactly 47 minutes to get across town. Not enough time to go home. She ate crackers from her emergency stash in the car and tried not to think about the rent notice tucked in her purse. $1,847 due in 6 days. She had $1,200 in her account. The diner was a relic from another era, all cracked red vinyl booths and a jukebox that only played songs from the 1950s. Olivia tied on her apron and smiled at customers, who didn't see her and took orders, and refilled coffee cups until her feet ached. Around 7:30 p.m., a father came in with his daughter. The girl was maybe 5, wearing a pink dress and clutching a stuffed rabbit. She ordered chocolate chip pancakes, even though it was dinner time, and her dad said yes without hesitation. While they waited for food, he helped her color on the paper kids menu, praising every scribble like it was a masterpiece. Olivia watched them while pretending not to. The easy affection, the way the dad cut the pancakes into small bites without being asked. The girl's delighted giggle when he made the rabbit dance across the table. Vincent used to make her laugh like that. He'd been 16 when their parents died in a car accident. That was the official story. Anyway, and suddenly responsible for an 8-year-old sister. He'd tried so hard, attending her school plays while running a criminal organization, helping with homework between meetings with dangerous men, teaching her to ride a bike in the brief moments when he wasn't drowning in violence. Then their parents were murdered. Not an accident. Never an accident in their world. And Vincent had transformed from her brother into something else. Something cold and untouchable and terrifying. She'd chosen normalcy over that darkness. Most days, she believed it was the right choice. Her shift ended at 11 p.m. The drive home took her through streets that got progressively seedier. Her apartment building was held together by peeling paint and stubborn determination. She climbed 3 flights of stairs because the elevator had been broken for 2 months. Something sat in front of her door. A manila envelope, thick and unmarked. Olivia's hands shook as she picked it up. She knew before opening it what she'd find. Cash, neatly bundled. She counted it anyway. $2,000, exact bills, nothing traceable. No note because none was needed. "I don't want your guilt money, Vincent," she whispered to the empty hallway. She should throw it away like all the others. She should maintain her principles. Instead, she thought about the rent notice, the daycare closing, David's drawing of his complete family. In the end, she left the envelope on her kitchen counter and went to bed without deciding. Sometimes not choosing was a choice too. Her phone glowed in the darkness. 11:47 p.m. In 6 days, rent was due. In however many weeks, the daycare would close. In 8 years, she hadn't spoken to the only family she had left. Olivia pulled out the old photograph she kept in her nightstand. Faded, corners bent. 4 people. Her parents smiling, her as a child, and Vincent with his arm around her shoulders, looking at her instead of the camera. Protective even then. "I miss you," she told the photo, not sure if she meant her dead parents or her living brother. Outside her window, a black car idled for 90 seconds before driving away. If Olivia had been watching, she might have recognized the driver. Marco Vitelli, her brother's right hand, completing his nightly check, making sure she got home safe. Following orders he'd been given 8 years ago and never abandoned. But Olivia was already asleep, dreaming of families that stayed together and money that didn't come soaked in blood. The call came 3 days later, while Olivia was wiping paint off a table that had more color on it than the paper the kids had been using. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, an unknown number. She almost didn't answer. "Liv? Oh my God, is this still your number?" It took Olivia a moment to place the voice. "Jessica? Yes. I can't believe you actually picked up. Listen, I know we haven't talked since graduation, but I'm getting married, and I really want to reconnect, you know? Can we do lunch? My treat. This Saturday?" Olivia glanced around the daycare. Marcus was building a block tower that defied physics. Little Elena was finally playing with the other kids instead of hiding in the reading corner. These small victories felt more real than expensive lunches with college friends who drifted away. "I don't know if... Please? I'm making a reservation at Le Jardin Étoilé, that fancy French place downtown. Noon on Saturday. Just a couple hours. I really miss you. Le Jardin Étoilé." Olivia had seen it featured in the lifestyle section of the newspaper. All crystal chandeliers and plates that cost more than her weekly grocery budget. Completely out of her world. "Jessica, I can't afford. My treat, I said. The wedding's paid for, and Greg's family is loaded. Seriously, just say yes. When's the last time you did something nice for yourself? Olivia couldn't actually remember. Okay, noon on Saturday. She regretted it immediately after hanging up, but backing out felt worse than going. Her neighbor, Mrs. Chen, had a daughter about her size who'd moved to California and left clothes behind. Saturday morning, Olivia knocked on her door at 10:15 a.m. I have this lunch thing, she explained, feeling ridiculous. Do you maybe have a dress I could borrow? Mrs. Chen's eyes lit up, like Olivia had just made her year. She returned with a navy blue dress, simple and elegant, only slightly faded. You're a good girl. You deserve nice things. The dress fit well enough. Olivia paired it with her only heels, bought for a job interview 2 years ago, and worn maybe 3 times since. In the mirror, she looked almost like she belonged in a fancy restaurant. Almost. The drive downtown took 34 minutes. Le Jardin Étoilé occupied the ground floor of a building that was all glass and steel and architectural ambition. Olivia's car looked like a rust bucket in the parking garage, full of vehicles that cost more than she'd make in 5 years. The rattling sound it made when she turned off the engine seemed especially loud. She walked to the restaurant entrance at 11:58 a.m. The doors were heavy glass with gold handles. Through them, she could see white tablecloths, crystal, fresh flowers on every surface. A hostess stood at a podium, blonde and polished, wearing an expression that suggested she could smell poverty from 50 feet away. Olivia pushed through the doors. The restaurant smelled like expensive perfume and food she couldn't pronounce. Every eye seemed to track her entrance, and not in a welcoming way. Reservation? The hostess asked, looking at Olivia's borrowed dress and worn heels with visible assessment. Chen party. For 2 at noon. The hostess scrolled through her tablet with excruciating slowness. I see it. If you'll wait here, please. Can I just wait here? Not a suggestion. Olivia stood by the podium while the hostess seated 3 other parties that had arrived after her. A couple in designer clothes, a business group in suits that probably cost what Olivia made in a month, an elderly woman dripping with jewelry. All of them were escorted immediately to tables. At 12:18 p.m., Olivia was still standing there. Excuse me, she tried again. My friend is probably already here. I said wait. The hostess turned to her colleague, not even bothering to lower her voice. Did you see those shoes? I think they're from a discount store. Heat flooded Olivia's face. Around her, other patrons pretended not to notice, while absolutely noticing. A woman in a fur wrap whispered something to her companion. A man in a suit smirked. The manager appeared from somewhere in the back. He was average height, thinning blonde hair carefully styled to hide the bald spots, wearing a name tag that read Julian Cross. His watery blue eyes swept over Olivia like she was a stain on his pristine floor. Is there a problem? His tone made it clear he thought she was the problem. I have a reservation, Chen party, noon. I've been waiting. I see. He looked at his tablet, then back at her with undisguised skepticism. And you're sure you can afford to dine here? Our entrees start at $85. The words hit like a slap. Around them, conversations had stopped. Everyone was watching now, witnessing her humiliation in real time. My friend invited me. She's paying. Julian Cross stepped closer, invading her space. May I see your purse? What? Why would? We have standards here. I need to verify you're a legitimate guest and not someone looking to cause trouble. Olivia's hands tightened on her worn canvas purse, the one with a broken zipper she'd been meaning to replace for 6 months. This couldn't be real. People didn't actually do this. Except they did. Julian held out his hand expectantly. The hostess watched with barely concealed glee. A waiter paused with a tray of champagne flutes, waiting to see what would happen. This is humiliating, Olivia said quietly. Then perhaps you should consider whether you truly belong in an establishment like this. She should leave. She should walk out with her head high and never think about this moment again. But something stubborn rose in her chest, the same stubbornness that had made her refuse Vincent's money for 8 years, even when she was broke. No. I'm not leaving. My friend is expecting me. Julian's thin lips pressed together. Security. A sound cut through the tension. Soft crying, almost imperceptible under the classical music playing through hidden speakers. It came from somewhere beyond the main dining room, down a hallway marked staff only. Olivia turned toward it without thinking. Her daycare instincts overrode everything else. That was a child's cry, and it was frightened. "Ma'am, you cannot go back there." She ignored Julian, ignored the hostess's scandalized gasp, ignored every staring face as she walked toward that hallway. The crying got louder. Behind a supply cart stacked with fresh linens, she found her. A little girl, maybe 6 years old, with curly blonde hair and terrified blue eyes. Her breathing came in sharp, whistling gasps that Olivia recognized immediately. Asthma attack, severe one. "Hey, sweetheart. Hey, it's okay." Olivia dropped to her knees beside the girl, not caring about her borrowed dress on the floor. "I'm going to help you, okay? Can you look at me?" The girl's eyes locked onto hers, desperate and drowning. "Good, that's so good. Now we're going to breathe together. In through your nose, slow, like you're smelling flowers." Olivia demonstrated, making it exaggerated and visible. "Then out through your mouth, like you're blowing out birthday candles." The technique she'd learned at the daycare, drilled into her by their nurse for situations exactly like this. The girl tried to follow, her small chest heaving. "That's it. You're doing amazing. In through the nose." Olivia breathed with her, slow and steady. Out through the mouth. Gradually, incrementally, the whistling eased. The girl's breathing smoothed. Her hand shot out and grabbed Olivia's with desperate strength. "You're okay. I've got you. You're safe. Ma'am, step away from the child right now." Julian's voice came from behind her, sharp with panic now instead of disdain. "Security. She's having an asthma attack, you idiot. Where's her inhaler? That's not your concern." The girl's grip tightened on Olivia's hand. Her lips moved, barely a whisper. The first words she'd spoken. "Don't leave me." And Olivia felt the world shift. Those 3 words in that tiny voice, and suddenly nothing else mattered. Not the humiliation, not the staring crowd, not Julian's threats. "I won't," she promised. "I'm right here." Heavy footsteps approached. Multiple people. Olivia looked up to see 2 security guards, both looking uncertain, and behind them a man in an expensive suit who'd gone completely pale. The man stared at Olivia like he'd seen a ghost. "Miss Marchetti?" The name dropped into the silence like a stone into still water. Around them, the energy changed. The security guards froze. Julian Cross made a choking sound. Even the girl seemed to still. Olivia looked down at the child still clutching her hand and felt the past she'd run from for 8 years finally catch up. The man in the expensive suit took 3 steps forward, and Olivia recognized him. Marco Vitelli, Vincent's right hand for as long as she could remember. He'd aged in 8 years, lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before, but the warm brown eyes were the same ones that used to sneak her extra cookies when she was a kid. "Marco." Her voice came out steadier than she felt. His entire demeanor had transformed from the panic of seconds ago to something careful and controlled. He crouched down beside her, his attention on the little girl. "Sophie, sweetheart, you ran away from Dr. Morrison. You scared us." Sophie. The girl had a name now, and she was connected to Vincent's world. Of course she was. Nothing in Olivia's life could ever be simple. "She had an asthma attack," Olivia said, still holding Sophie's hand because the girl wouldn't let go. "She needs her inhaler. Now." Marco spoke into a radio Olivia hadn't noticed. "Sound her. Service hallway, east side. Bring the inhaler and get Dr. Morrison down here." He looked back at Olivia, and something complicated crossed his face. "Thank you. She hasn't let anyone touch her in 3 months." 3 months. The time frame felt significant, but Olivia didn't have space to analyze it. Sophie's breathing had stabilized but was still labored, and her small hand trembled in Olivia's grip. A woman rushed up carrying a medical bag, presumably Dr. Morrison. She was professional and efficient, administering the inhaler with practiced ease. Sophie tolerated it but never released Olivia's hand, her eyes tracking Olivia's face like she was afraid she'd disappear. Behind them, Julian Cross had gone from red to white. "Mr. Vitelli, I had no idea. I didn't realize if I'd known." "Be quiet." Marco didn't raise his voice. Somehow that made it more terrifying. He turned back to Olivia. "Can you stand? We should move somewhere more private." "I'm not going anywhere until someone explains what's happening." "Fair enough." Marco's mouth twitched like he wanted to smile but remembered he shouldn't. "Sophie is Thomas Brennan's daughter. Thomas worked for your brother. He died 3 months ago protecting Vincent from an assassination attempt. Sophie witnessed it." The words landed like physical blows. Olivia looked down at the little girl, really seeing her now. The pallor, the shadows under her eyes, the way she held herself, like the world might shatter at any moment. A 6-year-old who'd watched her father die. Oh, sweetheart. Olivia's free hand came up to brush blonde curls back from Sophie's face. I'm so sorry. Sophie's eyes filled with tears but didn't fall. Like she'd learned crying didn't help. Dr. Morrison stood, packing away her equipment. Her breathing is stable now, but this was triggered by severe anxiety. Mr. Vitelli, this outing was supposed to be therapeutic. But clearly, I know. Marco ran a hand through his hair, looking exhausted. She was doing okay, then someone dropped a tray in the kitchen. The noise spooked her, and she ran. We've had 6 people searching for 20 minutes. She needs someone who understands trauma, Dr. Morrison said. I've recommended residential therapy, but Mr. Marchetti refuses to send her away. Mr. Marchetti, Vincent. Of course he'd taken in his dead friend's child. For all his coldness, Vincent had always been fiercely loyal to the people he considered family. Where have you been? Marco's question was soft but landed hard. 8 years, Olivia. He never stopped looking for ways to help you, and you never even called. Guilt rose like acid in her throat. I left for good reasons. Did you? Because from where I'm standing, your brother has spent 8 years trying to give you the clean life you wanted, while drowning in this one alone. That's not fair. Your apartment on Maple Street rents $847 a month, but your landlord receives $1,000 every month from an anonymous donor who makes up the difference when you're short. Your car broke down 2 years ago, needed $2,300 in repairs. Mysteriously, the mechanic called and said someone had paid the bill. Rainbow Hearts Daycare was going to close 4 years ago, until they received a grant from a foundation that doesn't exist anywhere except on paper. Each word was a knife. Olivia felt her carefully constructed independence crumbling. He had no right. He's your brother. He had every right. Marco's voice gentled. He never wanted you in this world, Liv, but he never stopped being your family either. Sophie made a small sound, and both adults immediately refocused on her. She was looking up at Olivia with those heartbreaking blue eyes, her hands still gripping tight. Don't leave like Daddy did, Sophie whispered. The words broke something in Olivia's chest. This child had lost everything, and somehow, in her frightened mind, Olivia leaving meant another person disappearing forever. I'm not going anywhere right now, Olivia promised, because she couldn't promise forever when she didn't understand what was happening. Marco's radio crackled. A voice came through, professional and tense. Sir, he's asking for an update. Vincent, her brother, was somewhere nearby, probably tearing the restaurant apart looking for this child. Tell him we found Sophie. She's safe. Marco paused. Tell him his sister is here. The silence on the other end lasted 3 full seconds. Then, copy that, he's on his way. Olivia's heart started racing. 8 years. She hadn't seen Vincent in 8 years. And now she'd see him in minutes, while kneeling on a restaurant floor, holding the hand of a traumatized child. The universe had a cruel sense of timing. I should go, she said, but Sophie's grip tightened to painful. Please don't. The little girl's voice was stronger now, desperate. Everyone leaves. Everyone goes away. Dr. Morrison knelt beside them. Sophie, sweetheart, this nice lady has her own life. She can't stay. Why not? Sophie looked between them. Uncle Vincent brings people home all the time for work. Why can't she come for me? Uncle Vincent. The title sat strangely. Vincent, who built an empire on fear, who could order deaths with a phone call, playing uncle to a traumatized 6-year-old. It's not that simple, Olivia started. Why? Sophie's question was heartbreakingly direct. You're nice. You helped me breathe. You didn't get scared or yell. Everyone else gets scared. I work with children. I know how to help when someone's frightened. Then help me. Sophie's voice cracked. I'm frightened all the time. Olivia looked helplessly at Marco. He shook his head slightly, his expression saying this wasn't his call to make. The restaurant had gone completely silent. Olivia had forgotten about the audience, but they were all still there. Wealthy patrons watching the drama unfold. Julian Cross, looking like he wanted the floor to swallow him. The hostess had disappeared entirely. Footsteps approached, different from before. Measured, controlled, but somehow still radiating, contained violence. Olivia knew without looking that Vincent had arrived. She turned her head and saw her brother for the first time in 8 years. He'd changed. Still tall, still broad-shouldered, but harder now. His black hair was streaked with gray at the temples, and new scars marked his hands. He wore a three-piece suit that probably cost more than her car, custom-tailored to hide the gun she knew he was carrying. His gray eyes swept the scene, cataloging everything in seconds. Those eyes landed on her and stopped. For a moment, neither of them moved. The restaurant held its breath. 8 years of silence and stubbornness and unspoken words hung in the air between them. Then Vincent's gaze dropped to Sophie, still clutching Olivia's hand. And something in his expression shifted. The cold mask cracked just slightly, showing the brother underneath. Sophie. His voice was gentle in a way Olivia hadn't heard since she was a child. Are you okay, little star? Sophie nodded, but didn't let go of Olivia. Vincent's attention returned to Olivia. Hello, little sister. Don't call me that. The words came out automatic, defensive. It's what you are. He moved closer, and Olivia caught his scent. Expensive cologne and gun oil, and something that was just Vincent. Familiar despite everything. Thank you for helping her. Anyone would have. They didn't. His voice hardened. Everyone in this restaurant ignored a frightened child. You're the only one who went to her. Julian Cross made a small sound of protest. Vincent turned to look at him, and the manager actually stumbled backward. We'll discuss your staff's behavior later, Vincent said quietly. The threat in those words was unmistakable. He looked at Marco. Clear the restaurant now. Marco moved immediately, speaking into his radio in low tones. Within minutes, the restaurant staff were ushering confused patrons toward the exits. Some protested, mentioning reservations and paid deposits. But one look from Vincent's security team had them moving faster. Julian Cross stood frozen by the hostess stand, face the color of old newspaper. Olivia stayed on the floor with Sophie, watching her brother orchestrate the evacuation of an entire 5-star restaurant with nothing more than quiet authority. This was Vincent in his element, not the brother who'd taught her to ride a bike, but the man who controlled half the city through fear and respect. Within 8 minutes, the dining room was empty except for their group. Dr. Morrison had retreated to a corner, giving them space. Marco stood near the entrance, a silent sentinel, and Vincent, after ensuring the room was secure, turned his full attention to Olivia and Sophie. Can you stand? He asked Olivia, not ordering, actually asking. She nodded and started to rise. Sophie's hand tightened in panic, and Olivia immediately stopped. It's okay, sweetheart. I'm not leaving. I'm just standing up. You can come with me. Sophie struggled to her feet, unsteady, keeping herself pressed against Olivia's side. This child trusted her after 20 minutes, more than she apparently trusted anyone else in her life. The weight of that responsibility felt crushing. Vincent watched the interaction with an expression Olivia couldn't read. We need to talk, privately. He gestured toward a door at the back of the restaurant. The wine cellar. No cameras, no listening devices. Why would you need a room without cameras in a restaurant? Olivia asked, though she suspected she knew the answer. Because I own this building, and sometimes I need places to have conversations that don't get recorded. He said it matter-of-factly, like everyone owned restaurants for the purpose of clandestine meetings. Please, Olivia, 5 minutes. She looked down at Sophie, who stared up at her with those impossibly blue eyes. Can she come? I'd prefer if Dr. Morrison. No. Sophie's voice was small but firm. I stay with her. Vincent's jaw tightened, but he nodded. All right, little star. You can come. The wine cellar was accessed through the kitchen, down a flight of stairs that had been recently renovated. The temperature dropped 15 degrees as they descended. Rows of bottles lined the walls, expensive labels from vineyards Olivia would never visit. A small table sat in the center with 4 chairs, clearly not original to the space. Vincent closed the door behind them. The silence felt absolute, pressing in from all sides. Sit, he said, pulling out a chair. Olivia sat, Sophie climbing into her lap without asking permission. The girl was heavier than she looked, solid and real and trembling slightly despite the breathing treatment. Olivia wrapped her arms around her instinctively. Vincent took the chair across from them. Up close, she could see more changes. A scar along his jawline that hadn't been there before. Shadows under his eyes that matched her own. The gray in his hair seemed premature for 34, stress aging him faster than time should. You look tired, she said before she could stop herself. I am tired. He leaned back in his chair, and for just a moment, he looked like the brother she remembered. Exhausted and human and struggling. I've been running this city for 8 years while trying to respect your choice to leave. It's been the hardest thing I've ever done. You didn't have to watch over me. I never asked for that. You're my sister. I didn't need you to ask. His gray eyes held hers. Mom and Dad made me promise to protect you. That didn't end because you decided you hated what I became. I don't hate you. The words surprised her with their honesty. I hate what you do. There's a difference. Is there? Vincent's voice was tired, not angry. Because from where I sit, it feels the same. Sophie shifted in Olivia's lap, looking between them like she was watching a tennis match. Are you fighting? No, sweetheart, Olivia said. Just talking. Talking sounds like fighting sometimes. Sophie's observation was too mature for 6 years old. Daddy and Uncle Vincent used to talk like this. Then Daddy would leave and not come back for a long time. Vincent's face did something complicated. Pain flickered across his features before he locked it down. Thomas always came back, though. Remember? He always came back. Until he didn't. The unspoken words hung heavy in the air. Tell me about her, Olivia said quietly. What happened? Vincent was silent for a long moment, choosing his words carefully. Thomas Brennan was my second in command. He'd been with me since we were 16, before I took over from Dad. 3 months ago, someone tried to kill me. Thomas stepped in front of the bullet. He paused, his hands tightening on the table. Sophie was in the car. She saw everything. Olivia's arms tightened around the little girl. Where's her mother? Dead. Cancer 2 years ago. Thomas was all she had. Vincent's voice roughened. I couldn't send her to foster care. She's family. But I don't know how to help her. She won't talk to therapist. She has nightmares every night. She barely eats, and I'm too much of this world to know how to reach someone so innocent. She needs someone gentle. Dr. Morrison's voice came from the doorway. They'd left it slightly ajar, and she'd apparently been listening. Someone patient, who understands childhood trauma, someone who isn't connected to violence. All 3 adults looked at Olivia. She felt the weight of their expectations like a physical thing. No, she shook her head. I have a life, a job. I can't just... Rainbow Hearts is closing, Vincent said quietly. Maria told the staff yesterday. You'll all be let go in 2 weeks. The world tilted. How do you know that? Because I've been keeping it afloat for 4 years, and I finally stopped. I needed you to have a reason to consider this. Rage flooded through Olivia. You sabotaged my job? Those kids need that daycare. And I'll reopen it fully funded the day you agree to help Sophie. His voice was calm, implacable. $15,000 a week to be her nanny. Full security, separate residence on my property, so you're not in the main house. Complete medical coverage. You maintain whatever boundaries you need. You can't buy me. I'm not buying you. I'm offering you a job. Vincent leaned forward. Look at her, Olivia. Really look at her. Olivia didn't need to look. She could feel Sophie's heartbeat against her chest, rapid and fragile. Could feel the way the little girl had finally relaxed slightly, her breathing evening out. In 20 minutes, Olivia had done what 3 months of professionals couldn't. What happens when someone uses her to get to you? Olivia asked. Uses me? We become targets just by being near you. You're already a target. Vincent's voice hardened. You think I haven't had Marco watching you for 8 years? You think my enemies don't know I have a sister I'd burn the world for? At least on my property, I can actually protect you. This is insane. This is survival. Vincent's mask slipped fully, and she saw her brother underneath, the one who was drowning and didn't know how to ask for help. I've killed people who deserved it, and some who probably didn't. I've built an empire on fear. But this little girl lost everything because she was near me, and I don't know how to fix it. You're the only good thing left in our family, Liv. Please. Olivia had never heard Vincent say please. Not in 8 years, maybe not ever. Sophie shifted, looking up at Olivia with those devastating blue eyes. Will you stay? Just for a little while? Just for a little while, like it would be temporary. Like Olivia could dip her toe into this world and pull back out clean. She thought about the rent she couldn't pay, the daycare closing, the manila envelope of cash she still hadn't decided what to do with, David's drawing of his complete family, her own family photo where Vincent's arm wrapped protectively around her shoulders. 30 days, she heard herself say. 1 month trial. If she's not improving, I leave, and you reopen the daycare regardless. Vincent's shoulders dropped like she'd just lifted a weight he'd been carrying for months. Deal. And I want complete honesty about any dangers. No surprises, no protection through ignorance. Agreed. And I keep working at the daycare, mornings, while it's still open. Sophie comes with me, gets socialization with other kids. Fine. Vincent stood, held out his hand. Do we have an agreement? Olivia looked at his offered hand. Shaking it meant stepping back into the world she'd run from. It meant admitting that for 8 years, she'd been lying to herself about being independent. It meant accepting that sometimes love looked like dirty money and secret protection, and a brother who'd kept her safe while she convinced herself she didn't need him. Sophie's small voice broke the silence. Please don't leave like Daddy did. Olivia took Vincent's hand. His grip was strong, familiar. And when had she started crying? I've missed you, little sister, Vincent said softly. I've missed you too, she admitted. The guest house sat at the back of Vincent's property, separated from the main mansion by 200 feet of manicured lawn and a garden that looked like it required a full-time staff. Olivia stood in the driveway at 9:47 a.m. on Monday morning, her entire life packed into 4 suitcases and 3 cardboard boxes, staring at what would be her home for the next month. The house was larger than her apartment. Cream-colored stone, blue shutters, a front porch with actual furniture. Through the windows, she could see hardwood floors and furniture that looked both expensive and comfortable. This was Vincent's idea of separate residence. Most people would call it a dream home. Miss Marchetti? Marco appeared from around the side of the building. Let me help with those boxes. I can manage. I know you can, but Sophie's waiting inside, and she's been asking for you every 10 minutes since she woke up. He picked up 2 boxes before Olivia could protest. She slept through the night for the first time in 3 months. Whatever you did yesterday, it worked. Guilt and responsibility warred in Olivia's chest. One good day didn't make her qualified for this. But she followed Marco inside, pulling her suitcases behind her. The interior was even nicer than she'd expected. Open floor plan, kitchen with granite counters and appliances that looked like they belonged in a cooking show. Living room with deep couches and a fireplace. Stairs led to what she assumed were bedrooms. Everything was clean and bright and completely unlike the dark, imposing mansion she could see through the back windows. Sophie sat at the kitchen counter, wearing pink pajamas with cartoon unicorns, swinging her legs. Her curly blonde hair was tangled, and she had a stuffed rabbit clutched in one hand. When she saw Olivia, her entire face transformed. You came back. Sophie scrambled off the stool and ran over, wrapping her arms around Olivia's waist. I thought maybe you wouldn't. People say they'll come back, but sometimes they don't. Olivia's heart cracked. She knelt down to Sophie's level. I made a promise, remember? I said I'd stay for a while. I keep my promises. Daddy kept his promises too. Sophie's voice went quiet until he couldn't anymore. There was no good response to that. Olivia pulled the little girl into a hug instead, feeling the fragile body shake slightly. How did you explain to a 6-year-old that death wasn't a broken promise, just a terrible inevitability? Marco cleared his throat. I'll leave you two to get settled. Vincent wants to see you later, around 2 p.m. He'll come here. And Olivia, the security system is already installed. Cameras on all entrances, panic buttons in every room. You're completely safe here. After he left, Olivia spent the morning unpacking while Sophie followed her from room to room like a small, silent shadow. The upstairs had 3 bedrooms, all furnished. The master had a bathroom bigger than Olivia's old apartment. Sophie's room, Marco had explained, was in the main house, but she could have a room here too if it made her more comfortable. Do you want to help me unpack? Olivia asked, pulling clothes from a suitcase. Sophie nodded and carefully carried folded shirts to the dresser. Her movements were precise, controlled, like she was afraid of making mistakes. It reminded Olivia of children at the daycare who came from chaotic homes, kids who'd learned that being perfect meant being safe. You know you're allowed to make messes here, Olivia said gently. It's okay if things aren't perfect. Uncle Vincent's house has to be perfect. He gets upset when things are wrong. Does he yell at you? No. Sophie considered this. He doesn't yell at me ever. But I hear him yell at other people on the phone. Scary yelling. So I try to be good, so he doesn't have to yell. The insight into Vincent's world through a child's eyes was heartbreaking. Sophie was trying to be invisible, to take up no space, to never be a problem. At 6 years old, she'd already learned that love could be conditional. Your uncle loves you, Olivia said. You don't have to be perfect for that. Sophie looked doubtful, but didn't argue. They spent the afternoon establishing routine. Lunch at noon, simple sandwiches that Sophie picked at, but actually ate. A walk through the garden where Sophie identified flowers by name, apparently something her father had taught her. Art time at the kitchen table, where Olivia spread out paper and crayons and tried to coax Sophie into drawing. Sophie drew her father. The picture showed a tall stick figure with brown hair, holding hands with a small stick figure with yellow hair. Both were smiling. In the corner, she drew what looked like a car, and inside it, docked scribbles. That's where Daddy died, Sophie said matter-of-factly, pointing to the scribbles. Dr. Morrison says I should draw my feelings. Is that a feeling? Olivia's hands trembled slightly as she set down her own crayon. That's a memory. Sometimes memories have feelings attached to them. What feeling does this memory have? Scared, and sad, and angry. Sophie's small hand clenched around the red crayon. And I don't know who to be angry at, because Daddy said the bad man was already dead. Vincent had killed whoever shot Thomas. Of course he had. But that didn't give Sophie anywhere to put her rage. It's okay to be angry at the situation, Olivia offered. Sometimes bad things happen, and there's nobody to blame, and that makes it worse. Are you angry your parents died? The question caught Olivia off guard. Yes, I'm still angry, and it's been 8 years. Does it get better? Honesty seemed important. It gets different. The angry feeling becomes smaller, but it never completely goes away. You just learn to carry it. Sophie absorbed this, then went back to her drawing. She added another stick figure, this one with brown hair, like Olivia's. The 3 figures stood together under a yellow sun. At 2 p.m. exactly, there was a knock on the door. Vincent stood on the porch, changed from his morning suit into dark jeans and a gray sweater that made him look almost normal. Almost. Can I come in? Olivia stepped aside. Vincent entered like he was visiting someone else's home, not a property he owned. His eyes swept the space, cataloging everything, settling on Sophie at the kitchen table. Hey, little star. How was your day? Sophie held up her drawing. Olivia helped me with feelings. Vincent studied the picture, his face carefully neutral. That's really good. Can I keep it? She nodded and handed it over. Vincent held it like it was precious. Not a child's crayon drawing, but something worthy of a museum. Sophie, why don't you go pick out a book from your room? Olivia suggested. We'll read it together in a few minutes. After Sophie ran upstairs, Vincent turned to Olivia. She's talking more. Marco said she slept last night. One night doesn't mean she's cured. I know. He set the drawing on the counter carefully. But it's more progress than we've had in 3 months. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. This is day 1. They stood in awkward silence, 8 years of distance between them, even in the same room. Olivia noticed details she'd missed before. The way Vincent's hands never quite relaxed. The slight bulge under his sweater that meant he was armed even visiting her. The habit of positioning himself where he could see both entrances. I brought something, Vincent said finally. He pulled a photograph from his pocket, edges worn. Their family. Mom, Dad, teenage Vincent, child Olivia. The same photo she kept in her nightstand. I look at it every night, he admitted. I remember Dad telling me that family was everything, that protecting you was my most important job. His voice roughened. I think I forgot how to do it in a way that didn't involve violence and money. You kept me safe, Olivia said quietly. I was angry about it, but you did. I just wish you'd kept yourself safe too. Someone has to do the ugly work. Better me than you. That's not how family works, Vincent. You don't have to carry everything alone. His gray eyes met hers, and she saw exhaustion there. Not physical tiredness, but soul-deep weariness. I don't know how to do it any other way. Maybe that's something we both need to learn. Sophie's footsteps thundered down the stairs. She appeared with 3 books clutched to her chest. I couldn't pick just one. Can Unc? Will Vincent stay for story time? Vincent looked startled, like he hadn't expected to be included. I have a meeting at... They can wait, Olivia said firmly. 30 minutes for story time won't destroy your empire. Something flickered in Vincent's expression. Surprise, maybe, or gratitude. All right, 30 minutes. They settled on the couch, Sophie between them, and Olivia read about brave princesses and talking animals and happy endings. Vincent sat stiffly at first, but gradually relaxed. By the third book, his deep voice was reading alternate pages, making silly voices that had Sophie giggling. This was the brother Olivia remembered, the one who'd read to her when she was small, the one who'd existed before their parents died, and the weight of an empire crushed the softness out of him. When Sophie finally yawned, Vincent checked his watch. 2:47 p.m. I really do have to go. Will you come back? Sophie asked. Tomorrow. I'll come back tomorrow. He stood, hesitated, then ruffled Sophie's hair gently. Sleep well, little star. After he left, Olivia watched through the window as he walked back to the main house. His shoulders were straighter than when he'd arrived, his step lighter. Maybe this arrangement would save more than just Sophie. 3 weeks passed in a rhythm that felt almost normal. Olivia woke each morning to Sophie climbing into her bed at dawn, the little girl's nightmares gradually spacing further apart. They'd have breakfast together, then head to Rainbow Hearts Daycare, where Sophie was slowly, cautiously making friends with the other children. Afternoons were spent in the garden, or doing art projects, or reading. And every evening at 6 p.m., Vincent would appear at the guest house door for dinner. It was becoming routine. It was becoming family. Then Marco showed up at 3:15 p.m. on day 24 with photographs and a face like stone. Olivia was helping Sophie plant marigolds in the garden when she saw him approaching. Something about his posture made her stand immediately, positioning herself between him and Sophie without thinking. What's wrong? Marco glanced at Sophie, who was absorbed in patting dirt around a flower. We need to talk, inside, now. Olivia's stomach dropped. She called to Sophie. Sweetheart, can you stay right here where I can see you through the window? Don't leave the garden. Inside, Marco spread 3 photographs on the kitchen counter. Black SUV parked across from Rainbow Hearts Daycare. Another showing the same vehicle outside a coffee shop Olivia frequented. A third with a telephoto lens showing Olivia and Sophie walking through Vincent's garden. Victor Kane, Marco said. He runs the Southside Territory. He's been trying to move into Vincent's areas for 2 years. These photos were taken over the past week. He's watching us. Olivia's voice came out steadier than she felt. He's planning something. Kane doesn't do surveillance for fun. He's looking for weaknesses, vulnerabilities. Marco's jaw tightened. You and Sophie are the biggest vulnerability Vincent has had in years. Then we leave. I take Sophie somewhere safe, away from here. Everywhere is less safe than here. At least on the property, we control the security. Marco's phone buzzed. He read the message and swore under his breath. Vincent wants full lockdown. No more daycare visits, no leaving the grounds until we neutralize the threat. Absolutely not. Sophie's finally making progress. You can't just cage her again. It's not forever, just until. Until what? Until Vincent kills whoever's threatening us? Then someone else takes their place and we lock down again? Olivia's voice rose. This is exactly why I left. Everything he touches becomes a prison. Everything he touches, he protects. Marco leaned forward. You think your life was free before? Vincent's had people watching you for 8 years. The only difference now is you know about it. The words hit like a slap. Before Olivia could respond, the front door opened and Vincent walked in. He must have come straight from a meeting because he wore a full suit, hair slicked back, Emily inched the crime lord. But his eyes went immediately to the window, checking on Sophie in the garden. I heard you from outside, he said quietly. The answer is still lockdown. You can't keep us prisoner. I can keep you alive. Vincent's voice was cold, controlled. Kane's killed children before. He burned down a rival's house with his family inside, including a 3-year-old. If you think he'll hesitate to use Sophie to get to me, you're dangerously naive. Don't talk to me like I'm a child. Then don't act like one. Vincent's control cracked. You came back into this world. You agreed to be part of it. That means living with the reality of what I do and who wants to hurt me. I came back to help Sophie, not to become a target in your war. You became a target the day you were born a Marchetti. Vincent's voice rose to match hers. You think running away for 8 years changed that? You think I wouldn't burn this entire city if someone hurt you? Kane knows that. Everyone knows that. You've been a weapon against me since you were 8 years old, and the only thing that kept you safe was distance and ignorance. The silence after his shout felt crushing. Through the window, Olivia could see Sophie had stopped gardening. The little girl stood frozen, staring at the house with wide, terrified eyes. "Look what you've done," Olivia said quietly. "She's scared again." Vincent turned, saw Sophie, and something in his expression crumbled. He walked outside, movements controlled but rigid. Olivia watched him crouch down beside Sophie, talking too quietly to hear through the glass. Sophie didn't run, but she didn't move closer either. After a moment, Vincent stood and walked toward the main house without looking back. Olivia went to Sophie, who was trembling. "It's okay, sweetheart. We were just having a disagreement. You sounded like you were leaving." Sophie's voice was barely a whisper. Everyone yells before they leave forever. "I'm not leaving. I promised, remember?" But the light in Sophie's eyes had dimmed. That night, the nightmares returned, worse than before. Sophie woke screaming at 2:33 a.m., tangled in sweat. Tie sheets, crying for her father. Olivia held her and hummed lullabies and felt like she'd undone 3 weeks of progress in one argument. She didn't hear Vincent enter. Suddenly, he was just there in the doorway, still dressed from earlier, looking completely lost. "I don't know how to do this," he said quietly. "I only know how to protect through fear and force. I don't know how to protect without destroying everything around me." "Then learn." Olivia kept her voice gentle, kept rocking Sophie. "She needs you to be more than just the scary uncle who yells." "I wasn't yelling at her. I was yelling at you. She doesn't know the difference. She just knows that raised voices mean people disappear." Vincent moved closer, hesitant. "Can I try reading to her?" Olivia nodded. Vincent sat on the edge of the bed and picked up the book from the nightstand. His deep voice filled the room, reading about brave knights and rescued princesses. Sophie's crying gradually quieted. Her breathing evened out. By the 3rd chapter, she was asleep between them. "I'm implementing the security measures anyway," Vincent said softly. "I can't risk her. I can't risk you." "I know." Olivia looked down at Sophie's peaceful face. "But we need to talk about what happens after. This can't be permanent. After I eliminate Kane, there will be another Kane, and another after that." She met her brother's eyes. "This is your life, Vincent. There's always going to be someone wanting to hurt you. We can't live in lockdown forever." "I don't have another answer." "Then we find one, together." Before Vincent could respond, his phone buzzed. Then Marco's. Then the house phone Olivia hadn't known existed. Vincent answered his mobile, his expression going from tired to dangerous in seconds. "When?" He listened. "How many?" Another pause. "I'm on my way." He ended the call and looked at Olivia. "Someone just delivered flowers to the front gate. Black roses." There was a note. What did it say? Vincent's jaw clenched. "The innocent always pay for their protector's sins. VK. Victor Kane's initials. He's making his move, tonight or tomorrow. We need to get you and Sophie to the safe room, now." "What safe room?" "Under the main house. Reinforced walls, separate ventilation. Enough supplies for 2 weeks." Vincent was already moving, scooping Sophie up carefully so she wouldn't wake. "Marco's bringing the rest of the security team. No one gets through those gates." They moved through the dark garden toward the mansion. Olivia's heart hammered against her ribs. This was real. The danger she'd convinced herself was exaggerated, the threats that seemed abstract, all of it suddenly concrete and immediate. The safe room entrance was hidden behind a bookshelf in Vincent's study. Heavy steel door, keypad lock. Walls that looked thick enough to withstand anything. Inside was surprisingly spacious, with beds, a small kitchen area, bathroom, and monitors showing every angle of the property. Vincent settled Sophie on one of the beds, pulling a blanket over her. "Marco stays with you. I'm going to." An explosion cut him off. The monitors showed the east wall erupting in flames and smoke. Alarms shrieked. On the screens, Olivia could see figures pouring through the breach. 8, 10, 12 armed men in tactical gear. "They're inside," Marco said, already pulling a weapon from a hidden panel. Vincent's face went cold, empty. This was the man Olivia had run from 8 years ago. Not her brother, but something carved from ice and violence. "Lock this door behind me. Don't open it for anyone but me or Marco. If we don't come back..." "Don't say that." "If we don't come back, there's a tunnel that leads to a garage 3 blocks away. Keys in the drawer. Cash and documents." Take Sophie and run. He looked at her, and for just a second, she saw her brother again. I love you. I should have said it 8 years ago. Then he was gone, Marco following. The steel door slammed shut. Through the monitors, Olivia watched Vincent and his men engage the attackers. The violence was brutal, efficient, terrifying. This was his world. This was what she'd run from. But Sophie was stirring, waking to alarms and fear. And Olivia realized she couldn't run anymore. Not from this, not from him. Because family meant staying even when it was dangerous. Especially when it was dangerous. Sophie woke to chaos, her blue eyes snapping open at the sound of gunfire echoing through the monitors. She looked at Olivia with the kind of terror that came from experience, from having lived through violence before. Are the bad men here? Her voice was small, already knowing the answer. Olivia pulled her close, positioning them away from the door. Uncle Vincent is handling it. We're safe down here. But the monitors told a different story. Vincent's men were holding the perimeter, but Kane's forces kept coming. 15 men now, then 17. This wasn't a probing attack. This was an invasion force. On the main screen, Olivia watched her brother move through the smoke and darkness with lethal precision. He took down 2 attackers in seconds, his movements fluid and terrifying. This was what he'd become in the 8 years she'd been gone, a weapon wrapped in expensive suits. Then she saw the blood. Vincent stumbled slightly, his hand going to his ribs. Even through the grainy footage, she could see the dark stain spreading across his shirt. He's hurt, Sophie whispered, seeing it too. Like Daddy was hurt. He's okay, look, he's still moving. But Vincent wasn't okay. He was slowing down, his left side favoring the injury. Another attacker came from his blind spot. Marco intercepted, taking the man down, but more kept coming. The tactical advantage was shifting. Kane's men were pushing toward the main house, toward the study, toward them. Sophie started shaking. They're coming, they always come. Daddy couldn't stop them, and now Uncle Vincent can't either. Sophie, listen to me. Olivia turned the girl to face her, blocking her view of the monitors. Your uncle is strong, he's going to be fine. You don't know that. Nobody knows that. Daddy said he'd be fine too, and then he… Sophie's breathing went sharp and whistling. Another asthma attack, triggered by panic. Olivia's mind raced. The inhaler was upstairs in Sophie's room. They had emergency supplies down here, but no medication. Sophie's breathing got worse, her lips starting to tinge blue. Stay with me, sweetheart. In through the nose, out through the mouth, remember? Olivia demonstrated, but Sophie couldn't focus. The attack was too severe, fear amplifying the physical response. The monitor showed Vincent and Marco being pushed back toward the house. 3 of Vincent's men were down. The attackers had reached the front entrance. Olivia looked at the steel door, then at Sophie gasping for air, then back at the monitors. An impossible choice. Stay hidden while Sophie suffocated, or risk everything to get the medication. She made the decision in 3 seconds. I'll be right back, I promise. She punched in the code Vincent had shown her, the door releasing with a heavy clunk. The study beyond was empty, but she could hear fighting elsewhere in the house. Smoke drifted through the hallways, acrid and choking. Olivia ran toward the stairs, every instinct screaming at her to go back. But Sophie needed her inhaler. Sophie needed to breathe. Nothing else mattered. She made it to the 2nd floor, to Sophie's room in the east wing. The pink bedroom with stuffed animals and drawings on the walls felt surreal against the background of violence. Olivia grabbed the inhaler from the nightstand and turned to leave. 2 men blocked the doorway. Kane's men, wearing tactical gear and carrying weapons that looked military grade. They stared at her like they'd just won a lottery they hadn't expected to play. Well, one of them said, smiling. Vincent Marchetti's sister. Boss is going to love this. Olivia backed up, clutching the inhaler. I'm nobody, just the nanny. Sure you are. That's why you came out of the panic room. The man stepped forward. Come quietly, and we won't have to hurt you. She looked past them into the hallway. No Vincent, no Marco, no one coming to save her. She'd walked into this trap with her eyes open because she'd chosen to save Sophie over protecting herself. The men moved closer. Olivia threw the first thing she could grab, a heavy snow globe from Sophie's dresser. It caught one man in the face, buying her 2 seconds. She tried to dart past them, but the second man caught her arm, twisting it painfully behind her back. Then Vincent was there. He appeared like something conjured from darkness, moving despite his injury with terrifying speed. He pulled the man off Olivia and slammed him into the wall hard enough to crack plaster. The second man raised his weapon, but Vincent was faster. 3 moves, brutal and efficient, and both attackers were unconscious on the floor. "What were you thinking?" Vincent's voice was raw with fury and fear. Blood soaked his entire left side. "I told you to stay in the safe room." Sophie couldn't breathe. She needed this. Olivia held up the inhaler with shaking hands. Something in Vincent's expression shifted. He understood immediately the impossible choice, the maternal instinct that overrode self-preservation. "We need to move, now." They ran together through smoke-filled hallways. More gunfire echoed from below. Vincent moved slower than before, his breathing labored. The wound was worse than he was admitting. They made it back to the study. Vincent pushed Olivia toward the safe room door, but she saw movement behind him. Another attacker, weapon raised. Olivia didn't think. She grabbed a letter opener from Vincent's desk and threw it. Her aim was terrible, but it distracted the man long enough for Vincent to turn and engage. They fought viciously, and Vincent won, but it cost him. He fell against the bookshelf, clutching his side, blood flowing freely now. "Go," he gasped. "Get to Sophie. Not without you." Olivia got under his arm, taking his weight. He was heavy and warm and bleeding too much. "Move, Vincent, now." They stumbled into the safe room together. Sophie was on the floor, lips blue, barely conscious. Olivia left Vincent propped against the wall and administered the inhaler, counting the doses, talking Sophie through it. Gradually, agonizingly, the little girl's breathing eased. Marco's voice crackled through the intercom. "Sir, we've pushed them back. Kane's forces are retreating. We've got 3 hostiles in custody." Vincent tried to respond, but his voice came out weak. Olivia saw how much blood he'd lost and felt cold terror wash through her. "He needs a doctor, now." "Medical team is on site. 2 minutes." Those 2 minutes felt eternal. Olivia pressed her hands against Vincent's wound, trying to slow the bleeding. He looked at her with unfocused gray eyes. "You ran into danger," he said, almost laughing. "For 8 years you ran away, and tonight you ran toward it. For Sophie, for you." Olivia's voice cracked. "Don't you dare die. You don't get to say you love me and then die." Not planning on it. But his eyes were closing. The medical team arrived in a chaos of equipment and efficiency. They worked on Vincent while Olivia held Sophie, both of them covered in his blood. The little girl had stopped crying, gone eerily silent. That hollow look returning to her eyes. "Is he going to leave like Daddy?" Sophie whispered. "No, he's too stubborn." They transported Vincent to what Marco called the medical facility. Apparently, a fully equipped surgical suite in the basement. Olivia didn't ask why a crime lord needed his own hospital. She just sat in the waiting area with Sophie in her lap and Marco beside them. All of them covered in smoke and blood and fear. At 4:47 a.m., the doctor emerged. "He'll live. The bullet missed anything vital, but he lost a lot of blood. He's demanding to see you." Vincent was propped up in a hospital bed, bandaged and connected to an IV, looking pale but alive. His eyes found Olivia and Sophie immediately. "Come here, little star." Sophie climbed onto the bed carefully, mindful of his injuries. "You came back. You didn't leave." "Never." Vincent's voice was rough. "I promised." He looked at Olivia over Sophie's head. "And you, running through a combat zone for an inhaler. You're either very brave or very stupid." "Both, probably." Olivia sat on the edge of the bed. "Family makes you do stupid, brave things." "Yeah." Vincent's hand found hers, squeezed weakly. "It does." Marco appeared in the doorway. "Boss, we've got one of Kane's men talking. He says Kane was never here. He's at one of his properties across town." This was a distraction. "A distraction from what?" Olivia asked. Vincent's face went hard despite his weakness. "From wherever he actually plans to strike." He looked at Marco. "Where would he hit us that actually matters?" The realization came to all of them simultaneously. Olivia felt her blood turn to ice. "Rainbow Hearts," she whispered. "The daycare. He knows I work there. He knows I care about those kids." Vincent was already trying to sit up despite the doctor's protests. "How many children are usually there?" 47. Maria lives in the apartment above it. Olivia's hands shook. He's going to burn it down, isn't he? Like he did to that other family. Not if I get there first. Vincent swung his legs off the bed, nearly collapsed, caught himself. Marco, gather everyone still standing. We move now. You can barely walk, Olivia protested. Then I'll crawl. Vincent's eyes burned with cold fury. He threatened my family. He threatened innocent children. There's no place in this city he can hide from what I'm about to do. 6 months later, spring came to Greymont City, with the kind of gentle warmth that made everything feel possible. Olivia stood in the garden of what she no longer thought of as the guest house, but simply as home, watching Sophie chase butterflies through the marigolds they'd planted together. The night at Rainbow Hearts felt both distant and immediate. Vincent's team had arrived before Kane, turning the trap back on itself. The children had never been in real danger because Maria had followed Olivia's frantic 5 a.m. phone call and evacuated everyone to a hotel. Kane had walked into an empty building, surrounded by Vincent's men and Marco's cold efficiency. What happened after, Olivia didn't ask about in detail. She knew Kane was dead. She knew his organization had collapsed. She knew Vincent had made an example brutal enough that no one had challenged him since. She also knew her brother had spent 3 weeks recovering, that he'd nearly died from infection, and that Sophie had refused to leave his side through all of it. The little girl who'd been terrified of him had become his fiercest guardian, reading him stories and bringing him drawings, and scolding him when he tried to work from his hospital bed. "Miss Olivia." Sophie's voice pulled her from the memory. The girl ran over, blonde curls bouncing, face flushed with exercise and joy. "Can we make the butterfly cake for Uncle Vincent's dinner tonight? The one with 17 layers that took us 4 hours last time? He said it was his favorite." Sophie's blue eyes sparkled with mischief that had been absent 6 months ago. "And Marco said Uncle Vincent needs more things that make him smile." Marco had become an unexpected fixture in their lives, the bridge between Vincent's dark world and their small haven of normalcy. He joined them for dinner 3 nights a week, taught Sophie card tricks, and had developed a concerning addiction to Olivia's cooking. "All right, butterfly cake it is, but you're helping with all 17 layers." They spent the afternoon in the kitchen, flour dusting every surface, Sophie standing on a stool to reach the counter. She talked constantly now, making up stories about the butterflies in the garden and the elaborate adventures her stuffed rabbit had during the day. The selective mutism had faded over months of safety and therapy and love. Dr. Morrison still visited twice a week. But now the sessions felt less like treatment and more like friendship. Sophie had nightmares occasionally, especially during thunderstorms, but they were manageable. She'd started regular school in January, making friends, bringing home art projects that covered the refrigerator. At 5:47 p.m., Olivia heard the front door open. "We're in the kitchen." Vincent appeared in the doorway, still wearing his work suit, but with his tie loosened and jacket over his arm. He looked tired but lighter somehow, like the 6 months had taken weight off his shoulders instead of adding it. The gray in his hair had spread, but his eyes were clearer. "Something smells amazing," he said. "Butterfly cake," Sophie announced proudly. "I made it mostly by myself." "Mostly is doing a lot of work in that sentence," Olivia said, wiping frosting from Sophie's cheek. "Go wash up. Dinner in 20 minutes." Sophie ran off, leaving Olivia and Vincent alone in the kitchen. He moved to help her, pulling plates from the cabinet with the easy familiarity of someone who'd done this hundreds of times. "How was your day?" Olivia asked. "Boring meetings about shipping contracts. Nothing exploded. Nobody died. Very disappointing." His dry humor had returned over the months, glimpses of the brother she remembered from childhood. "Sounds perfectly acceptable to me." They worked in comfortable silence, setting the table, finishing the meal. This had become their routine. Vincent arrived at 6 p.m. every evening, ate dinner with them, spent time with Sophie, then retreated to the main house around 8:30 p.m. Boundaries had been established, respected, and gradually softened. Olivia had kept her promise to work mornings at Rainbow Hearts. Vincent had kept his promise to fund it, expanding the facility to serve twice as many children. She'd been offered the director position when Maria retired last month, accepting on the condition that Vincent stayed on the board but never interfered with daily operations. They were learning to exist in each other's worlds without consuming them. Dinner was chaotic in the best way. Sophie told elaborate stories about her day at school. Marco arrived halfway through, and was immediately recruited to judge whose butterfly drawing was better. Vincent pretended to be offended that he wasn't included in the competition. The cake was lopsided and perfect. After Sophie went to bed at 8 p.m., Olivia and Vincent sat on the back porch with coffee, watching the sun set over the garden. The wall where Cain's men had breached had been rebuilt, reinforced, turned into a vertical garden that bloomed with climbing roses. "I have something for you," Vincent said. He pulled an envelope from his pocket, official-looking and thick. "Adoption papers, for Sophie. I'm filing them next week." Olivia's throat tightened. "Vincent, She needs stability, a real family, legal protection." He stared at the envelope. "I don't know how to be a father. I barely know how to be a person. But I love her, and she deserves better than being the ward of a criminal." "You're not just a criminal. You're her uncle who reads her 17 stories because she can't pick just one. You're the person who learned to braid hair from YouTube videos. You're the man who rearranged his entire schedule so he wouldn't miss her school play. I still don't know what I'm doing." "Nobody does. That's what being a parent is." Olivia took the envelope, studied it. "She's going to be so happy." They sat in silence, watching the sky turn from orange to purple. 6 months ago. They'd been strangers who shared blood. Now they were family who chose each other daily. "Do you regret it?" Vincent asked quietly. "Coming back? Staying?" Olivia considered the question honestly. Her life was complicated now, tangled with danger she couldn't fully escape. But Sophie was thriving. Vincent was healing. And she'd rediscovered the brother she'd lost 8 years ago. "No, I don't regret it, even though I'm still." He gestured vaguely, encompassing his criminal empire. "Even though I don't agree with what you do, Vincent. I probably never will. But I understand why you do it. And I know you're trying to be better." She bumped his shoulder with hers. "We're both trying to be better." The next morning, Olivia woke to Sophie climbing into her bed at dawn, a ritual that had become precious instead of concerning. "Can we go see Uncle Vincent before school?" They walked to the main house in their pajamas, spring air cool against their skin. Vincent answered the door already dressed for work, but his face softened when he saw them. "Emergency breakfast meeting?" he asked. "The most important kind," Sophie said seriously. They ate pancakes at Vincent's massive dining table that had probably hosted dangerous men making dangerous deals. Now it hosted a 6-year-old with syrup in her hair and a sister who'd finally come home. After breakfast, Sophie went upstairs to change. Vincent and Olivia cleaned up together. Their movements synchronized from months of practice. "I'm filing the adoption papers today," Vincent said. "My lawyer thinks it'll take 60 days to finalize. Sophie's going to want a party, fair warning. I'll have Marco handle it. He's better at parties." "You're getting better at them too." Olivia handed him a dish to dry. "Last month you only looked murderous for the first hour instead of the entire time." 7-year-olds are terrifying. They have no concept of personal space or appropriate questions. Olivia laughed and Vincent smiled, and for a moment they were just siblings teasing each other. Not a crime lord and the sister who'd run from his world, but family who'd found their way back through fire and fear and love. That afternoon, Olivia took Sophie to the cemetery for the first time. They brought flowers for Thomas Brennan's grave. Simple daisies that Sophie had picked herself. "Do you think Daddy knows I'm okay now?" Sophie asked, arranging the flowers carefully. "I think he knows, and I think he's proud of how brave you've been." "Do you visit your parents?" "Sometimes, not as often as I should." Sophie took her hand. "Can we visit them together, so they're not lonely?" They walked to the Marchetti family plot, where Olivia's parents rested under matching headstones. She hadn't been here since the funeral 8 years ago, too angry at the world that had taken them. But standing here with Sophie, she felt something shift. "Mom, Dad, this is Sophie," Olivia said quietly. "She's family now. Vincent's adopting her, but she's mine too. I think you'd love her." Sophie knelt and placed one of her daisies on the grave. "Hi, I'm Sophie. I'm going to take care of your kids. They're taking care of me, so it's fair." On the drive home, Sophie fell asleep in the back seat. Olivia glanced at her in the rearview mirror, this little girl who'd brought her family back together. She thought about the scared woman she'd been 6 months ago, struggling to pay rent, convinced that independence meant isolation. She'd learned that family wasn't always neat or safe or simple. Sometimes it was messy and dangerous and required impossible compromises. But it was also worth fighting for, worth staying for, worth rebuilding from ashes. That evening, Vincent arrived at exactly 6 p.m. Sophie met him at the door, bouncing with excitement about the cemetery visit and the flowers and 1,000 other small joys. "Uncle Vincent, when you adopt me, do I get to pick a middle name?" "You already have a middle name. But I want a new one. Can it be Marchetti? Sophie Marchetti Brennan?" Vincent crouched down to her level, something that had taken him months to learn to do naturally. "You want our family name? We're family, aren't we? That's what Olivia says. Family is people who stay." He pulled her into a hug, this man who'd built walls around his heart and was learning to let them crumble. "Yeah, little star, we're family, and I'm never leaving." Olivia watched from the doorway, her heart full of the family they'd become. Not perfect, not simple, but theirs. Built from loss and found in the spaces between danger and love. That night, after Sophie was asleep and Vincent had gone back to the main house, Olivia stood in her garden under the stars. Her phone buzzed with a text from Vincent. "Thank you for coming back, for staying, for being the best of us." She typed her response, "Thank you for never really letting me go." The past 6 months had taught her that running away had never made her free. Freedom came from choosing to stay, even when it was hard, from building something worth protecting, from learning that family meant holding on through the darkness until you found the light together. Spring had come to Greymont City, and with it, the promise of new beginnings. Sophie was healing, Vincent was trying, and Olivia had finally found her way home.